Enter professional publishing, and suddenly writing is a matter of professional jealousies, obscure marketing budgets, and advances that don't measure up to those of your peers. Editors go in and mess around with your words, your vision. Marketing and publicity make you distill hundreds of pages of careful, nuanced reflection into cute, tweet sized talking points. Readers inflict their own expectations, not just on the story, but on your politics, your philosophy, your stance on all things ethical. You, not your writing, become the product. Your looks, your wit, your quippy clapbacks, and factional alignments with online beefs that no one in the real world gives a shit about. And once you're writing for the market, it doesn't matter what stories are burning inside of you. It matters what audiences want to see, and nobody cares about the inner musings of a plain, straight, white girl from Philly. We need to talk about Yellowface. Yellowface by Kuang came out this week. It came out yesterday, actually, as a recording. I've already devoured it. I pulled out my free write and I have like 6 pages of notes. I'm not going to go through all of them with you because there's tons of spoilery things that are happening, but this bad boy got a workout. And I just have to say right off the top, this book is my favorite R.F. Kuang. I was very curious about this. This has been on my radar since it was first announced. It's been pre-ordered basically since you could pre-order it. And I just had this feeling that this was going to be the work of hers that I connect to the most. I had a feeling she was going to knock like contemporary literary fiction, normal fiction, general fiction out, like just knock it out of the park. And in my humble opinion, she did. Easily 5-star read. Uh, I feel like in fantasy she does well, but it is not her genre. It is not where she's going to shine the most in the future of her career. In my humble opinion, I feel like her characters in fantasy are kind of flat and one-dimensional and are just there to drive home whatever narrative she wants you to take. The messaging is what she wants. So the characters are just little, like almost cardboard cutouts to get you to that message. But this is a real person. June Hayward is a real annoying, terrible, you want to wring her neck person that we all kind of know. If you're in this bookish space, we've seen this author, we've seen this person, and there's little things that she talks about here and there throughout the story that makes me wonder which little Twitter scandal, authors behaving badly has she been pulling inspiration from, because there's so many things that sound familiar and also don't seem to be specific to any exactly one person. And I think that says a lot about how rampant this behavior is in publishing. But anyway, let's get into the book. What is it about? What is Yellowface? What is this? What is this book? It opens with June Hayward, who is our narrator. We are in her head through this whole book, whether you want to be or not. And she is having dinner drinks with an old college friend. They both went to Yale. And it's Athena Liu, who is an incredibly famous author, and she's got like things that have been optioned for HBO, things like that. They were in Yale together, and obviously, Athena's career has taken off, and June's has not. June is a white lady from Philly, and she has not seen the kind of success that her friend has seen. And she constantly talks about how the industry just wants diversity. The industry just wants that special thing. There is no space anymore for like, just a white girl from Philly. Nobody wants to hear about you. That is her soapbox platform, whether you agree with it or not. That is where she is coming from. And so she and Athena are having these drinks to celebrate some things, and Athena chokes on a pancake and dies in front of her. June decides to steal some manuscripts, some unfinished works from Athena. One of those is a historical fiction based on the Chinese that were used in World War I to dug trenches and things. It wasn't good. So it's a story about Chinese history. It's a story about Chinese oppression and culture and existence. And June steals this story that is very rough and she takes this really, really rough draft and produces a book that becomes a sensation. And we watched the life cycle of this book, which is very interesting. The detail and insight into the publishing industry that is given to you in Yellowface is very fascinating. You watch this book go from being picked up by an agent, then bid on by different publishing houses, picked up. You see it through its life cycle to publication, to being a sensation, to all the media surrounding being a literary sensation, to then the next wave, which is always like kind of that backlash wave where people are like, what? And start questioning you, questioning June's right to tell this story. And all of this is made worse by the fact that her publisher decides that they kind of all decide together that she needs to change her name. She had one debut novel that was in a completely different genre that didn't really do very well, that was published under June Hayward. Her middle name is Song because her mom was kind of like a hippie, and they go with June Song. It's a book about Chinese history. They put this name June Song, which is like racially ambiguous. Do we know what she is? We don't know. And that sort of haunts her throughout the story. And at no point does June ever stop and say, like, hey, I'm not comfortable with this. This sounds like we're misleading people. And she's very okay with just being, well, if you see June Song on a book and assume that I am Asian descent, then that's on you. Like, you made that assumption. That's not on me. I didn't make that. Like, I've been very clear. She even says at some point, like, I don't have like white lady put tattooed on my forehead. Like, I don't have to. Why do I have to identify myself? She's very privileged. She's very unaware of the things that she does and how they appear. She is incredibly self-centered. The few times that people do try to stop and say, like, hey, maybe this isn't right, she shuts them down, and she's just so high on her success that she's stolen from Athena. There are all these haunting moments where the guilt of doing this does creep into the narrative, but she finds ways to repress all that so that she can just enjoy the success of stealing this novel from her friend, who really isn't her friend. She also spends a lot of the novel trying to vilify Athena as some way to then justify her own actions, even though it doesn't matter if Athena was also a bad person. That doesn't negate the fact that you stole somebody else's work and are profiting from it. And you're not just profiting from somebody else's work, you're profiting from another group's trauma and history, and it's not your story to tell. So why are you telling this story? Which is why I really wanted to start this video off with that quote, because this person, June Hayward, she is so many people that we see on the media, on Twitter, on authors behaving badly. She gets into reviewer spaces and can't stop looking at her reviews and clapping kind of back at people. But she also has this ability to almost make you sympathize with her. She has these would start as very insightful insights and criticisms of the publishing industry, and then she twists it into like a, oh, poor white me and my suffering. And she cannot see how like tokenism exists. At the end, there is a scene with her and another character who explains to her that yes, Athena, we didn't like Athena. Athena was a terrible person, but Athena basically blocked other people, other Asian writers from getting deals because she became the token Asian writer for that publishing house. Why would they take on any other work when they have an Asian writer who is succeeding? So they're just because it looks like perhaps you need to be diverse in some way to get a publishing deal, it's actually horseshit. It's really like tokenism. It's not an open door. Uh, we take everybody kind of thing. Publishing doesn't care. Publishing only cares about the money. If they don't need to open their doors and be like, we're going to publish everybody, regardless of anything. It's not even about that. It's just about who's going to make the money at the end of the day. And we see this as June interacts with her publishers and all the scandals that are coming out and the people questioning whether or not she stole this from Athena and how her publishers deal with it. They don't care if she stole it from Athena. They don't even care if she has the right to tell the story. They just want to make sure that they're going to make money. And they don't even care that there is a scandal because, as they tell her, having a scandal where, Twitter is angry at you and social justice warriors are coming out and being like, you've co-opted somebody else's history and trauma for your own profit, then the right-wing news media picks it up and is like, there's a culture war, and she's making money off of that as well. So they really do not care about any of this as long as their bottom line is unaffected. There is no morality really anywhere in this story. Even our person who kind of at the end finally really exposes June, she's not even totally like moral and ethical. It is really interesting how Kuang just showcases how morally bankrupt publishing can be and how people are so fixated on being the big thing and maintaining their egos. She goes to some literary events, and the people there just seem the other authors seem so disgusting. Honestly, I would despicable. I could not spend eh, hours hobnobbing with people who are of that way, that like egotistical mindset. It's disgusting. So this book is just so it is so good at like giving a well-rounded criticism of publishing from the industry itself, the publishers, the Hollywood agents around it that grab up manuscripts, the agents, the authors themselves, the fans. She touches a lot on social media and how like Twitter, I mean book Twitter, I said this probably in dozens of videos over the years. But book Twitter is terrifying. Like it's a terrifying place. The fact that like you can be crucified on Twitter and how quickly things can snowball and how quickly we can move away from what may be a valid criticism and into like this dogpiling, just mob insanity that can get to levels of just inappropriateness where people are, I don't know, sending death threats to other people, to strangers on the internet. It's alarming, it's terrifying. And when June's going through these things, you do feel bad for her for the level of hate. Nobody should be receiving death threats for anything, that kind of stuff. But also, you don't feel that bad for her. You're like, oh, she doesn't deserve this. Nobody deserves to be sent a death threat. June deserves to be called out and canceled on Twitter. But it's just interesting because Kwong does look at how quickly things shift. How the Twitter will be focused on the issue du jour, the author du jour, the problematic person du jour, and then when that fire burns itself out, there's quickly another person that comes in, and we do the same cycle again. And it sounds exhausting to be a creative putting anything out into the world. And I mean, I feel like we've talked about this in the death of the artist conversation that we've had, and that a lot of people have had this art before the art. Like, can you separate art and the artist? That kind of conversation, where like, how do you consume things if you also talk about those things online, or if you want to be like an ethical consumer? Like, how do you do things when there's always somebody kind of around the corner there to tell you why that's not a good choice, and then at some point you just kind of stop like deer in a headlights. Point is that she touches on so many aspects of publishing, of being an author, of uh, being somebody in this with any sort of fame or like social following. It's very interesting. And I think one of the really, 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 really interesting things that they have that she touches on in this is about like what makes a bestseller. Because, there are a lot of books that are out there that we read and we talk about and we're like, I don't understand why more people don't read this book. Like, I don't understand why this doesn't get more coverage. I don't understand why this hasn't been, reviewed more, picked up more, or like, why is nobody talking about this? Like, I don't understand. This book is so phenomenal. And then there's some other book that we cannot stop hearing about. It just keeps going on and on and on and on and on. It's on all your socials. You see it in Barnes and Noble. It's on book talk tables. It's everywhere. And you're like, holy crap. But like, this book isn't even half as good as book A. And she touches a little bit on that. There's a quote in here that I just want to read you. There's a lot of quotes in these 6 pages of notes that I have over here. She's talking about the success of her book and how everybody's talking about The Last Front. That's her book. Like they know it, like they know it's going to be a hit. And she says, I wonder if that's the final obscure part of how publishing works. If the books that become big do so because at some point everyone decided, for no good reason at all, that this would be the title of the moment. So is part of being successful in publishing really up to some other thing other than your talent? Is there a piece of this that is because somebody in publishing decided you're going to be successful? This is where I'm putting my money. This is where I'm marketing. This is what I'm backing to be a success. And then there are other things that may be technically or critically better, but they're not getting that. They're not being framed that way. They're not being sold that way. They're not being marketed that way. And how much does that affect this, the success of a book? I thought that was really interesting. There's a lot of things in here, and I wish I could go through and do like a really long, like chapter by chapter, let's talk about it all video. But I feel like I don't know if anybody really wants that because it's going to spoil a lot of things, at least not right now. But there's so much that she criticizes or at least sheds a little light onto to make you think about it in this book. And I'm here for it. And I'm so glad that she did this. R.F. Kuang doesn't pull any punches in this book. She puts us in the head of the most unlikable character, and we go on this journey, and you are screaming through most of it because she is just so terrible and so unaware of how her actions actually should have consequences, and how just because you want something bad enough does not mean that you deserve it, and just because you feel like somebody else is succeeding instead of you doesn't make life unfair. She's constantly comparing herself to other people, to people she mentors, to people she went to school with, to just other writers in general, and she's so focused on the success of others that she can't even come up with her own freaking material to publish and to write, because it's not just one book she steals from Athena. She steals two, and she goes on to try to use all of the drama around this and tries to use that as well as fodder to further her career and to keep her name out there, because the thing that is worse than not being successful is having success and not maintaining it. She cannot process losing the public eye, being the darling, being the one people want to talk about. She needs it. She needs to be successful and famous, because once she got that, June could not stop. She says, stopping isn't an option. I need to create. It is a physical urge, a craving, like breathing, like eating. When it's going well, it's better than sex. And when it's not, I can't take pleasure in anything. She will do anything to be to have that high again, and she does not care who she tramples on in the process, including putting on Yellowface, stealing a story from a marginalized author, and never feeling bad about that at all. She never feels bad about that. She literally says, I've wondered before how authors who were canceled, and I mean canceled for good reasons. She doesn't think that she did anything at all that was wrong or worth the level of repercussions that she has received. And oh, it's this book is phenomenal. If you've read it, I need to talk to you about it because I need to be able to talk like really openly about it. And I can't do that here because I want you all to experience the ride that is this book. Please pick up a copy. Please read it. Please come back, leave a comment, tell me what you thought about it. I absolutely enjoyed this book. I feel like I can go on for hours about it. Like I said, I could do like an hour-long spoiler filled chapter by chapter video going through all the things that happen in this book because this book is a freaking roller coaster. It is literally what the other Black girl should have been, and I'm glad that we finally get a book that is a scathing criticism of the publishing industry, all aspects of publishing, all aspects of being a creative on a commercial level. And I'm sure this is going to get backlash at some point. There's going to be a lot of people like myself who are going to love it. There's going to be that next wave of people that are somehow offended by it because there's going to be a lot of cognitive dissonance that happens while reading this book for some people. I don't know why I'm so handsy today. I'm just very excited. Please read Yellowface. I absolutely loved it. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. I'll see you in my next video, whatever it may be, because it's my channel and I can do whatever I want. Bye.
So just sit with me, talking to the night until the morning, building chemistry. I don't think I ever wanna go come closer next to me. Trying to find another way to say this, but I think